Eamon, how you doing, buddy?
Good, Jack. Really well, mate. How about you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you for asking, and thanks heaps for coming on and sharing your story. But yeah, we were chatting a while ago. Good friend through Andy Ross, and yeah, some of our kind of Instagram chats. You have informed me that you've had a couple of pretty incredible sightings or UFO view sightings or whatever the hell they were, and more than one, I believe.
Yeah, I've had a couple. Yeah, a couple. So I don't know. I can go back to the start and just kind of give you a roundup of it if you want.
Please.
Beautiful. So,
Sounds good.
you may know. So I grew up in a really small country town in northeast Victoria, up towards Falls Creek, on a property of about 800 acres or something like that. And so it's one of those things. As growing up, we didn't have electricity till I was about 14, so I was always outside doing stuff. And in a place like that that's remote, there's no light pollution. So as soon as it gets dark, the stars are just absolutely incredible. So as a kid, it was just one of those things where I don't know, for whatever reason, was just constantly drawn to like looking up at night, even though secretly when I was that young, I was pretty terrified of the dark, like living like literally right in the bush, and there's always weird sounds and stuff at night. And, nothing that I'd be scared about now. It's just one of those things when you're a kid. But so yeah, basically when I growing up out there, like there was always just like weird stuff happening around my farm. Nothing like just weird feelings, like nothing like where you were seeing stuff or anything. But the the I wasn't like super interested in like UFOs or anything like that. It wasn't like it was anything when I was a kid that I'd get books or anything like that, or I did any research on. However, the thing that got me into it was the biggest, I guess, sighting that I've had to date, which was in about 1998. And so, like I said, we're living in northeast Victoria, about 3.5 hours north of Melbourne, and our family had a investment property down in Brunswick. And so my dad was a builder, and so we were going down doing renovations on weekends and things like that. So I was at the time probably 12 or 13 years old. And so one Friday night, my brother, who was 5 years older than me, he was like 15, 16 at the time, or whatever it was, and my dad were driving to Melbourne, and we had a Hiace van. So a Hiace van's got three, like a bench seat in the front, and obviously, we had tools and timber and things in the back. So we were all front and center of the car. And as we were driving to Melbourne, you might know this, Jack. So north of Melbourne is a town called, like, it's near this kind of area, like Broadford, Kilmore, and a few other places as you're coming into Melbourne, heading southbound from where I was.
Hmm.
Um, Whether or not you know, there's a mountain, and it used to make me laugh. There's a mountain on the way into Melbourne there, and it looks like a set of breasts. It's kind of like a weird, whether or not you remember, it's on the left hand side as you're heading in the highway coming in. So anyway, we'd left our farm probably at like, I think I finished. I can't quite remember whether I was in primary school or high school. It was around that 12 to 13 range or something like that. I can't quite remember if I was already in high school. But anyway, I'd finished school for the day, and Dad drove myself and my brother down to Melbourne. And so by the time we got to kind of half an hour out of Melbourne, it was dark by this stage. I can't remember what time of year it was, but it was not daylight saving, so it might have been like 7 o'clock or something like that. So it was one of those nights where the sky is quite dark, like that dark blue, but not blacked out or anything like that. And so, being a Friday night, heading into Melbourne, there was like a lot of traffic on the freeway. So there's two lanes each side of the freeway, big median in the middle. And as we were getting closer to those mountains I described, which is like kind of 40 minutes, yeah, north of Melbourne, we're driving along the highway, and I was in the middle seat of this Hiace van. And as we were driving, I was looking obviously ahead, and I said to my dad, I said, "Look how low that airplane's flying." And so, as my kind of angle of view, I'm looking out, and I could see, like, I would say no more than maybe 200 meters above the freeway. I could just see this object, and it was hard to see. I could just see lights as we were driving, and it kind of looked like it was coming towards us. A bit hard to kind of see whether it was hovering or moving. And so obviously, I just thought it was an airplane. I'm like, it's really strange that an airplane's flying that low above a freeway. And so as I said to my dad, I said, "Hey, look how low that plane's flying." And then as this is happening, we're doing 110 k's an hour, so we're heading directly towards it. My dad goes just randomly, he's like, that's not an aeroplane. That's a fucking UFO. Like that was literally what he said. And I'm kind of like freaking out, going, wait, what? What are we talking about? So as we're heading towards it, I'm looking and I'm seeing a triangle shaped craft. So the point, the apex of the triangle facing me. And what I could do, I could see below it and above it. I could see that it wasn't like a tall object. It was rather thin. As far as the actual size, the height of it, I'm not quite sure. But as we were coming closer, I could see it was a triangle and had red lights on each point of the triangle, and they were actually flashing. And then it had some other, I can't remember how many, because it all happened pretty quickly. Within kind of 12 seconds or something like that. There was lights on the bottom of it that were very, very bright. That's what I remember, just seeing huge lights. I can't now quite remember if there was like 6 or more, but I just remember there was a fair few lights on it. And so as we're getting closer to it, we're all sitting in the front of this van and we're like looking up as you're going literally right underneath it. And if you know that, like the freeway, the Hume freeway that way, so it's like 2 lanes medium, 2 lanes. Oh, sorry, someone's at my door, but whatever. So as we we're coming across, it was taking up pretty much all 4 lanes of the freeway, and I'm thinking maybe 200 to 300 meters high. So this thing could have been like as big as a football field,
Really?
or something. It was enormous. Yeah, enormous, like really, really big. So that's what kind of freaks me out. And as we're kind of going under it, like we're looking up at it as we're going, and that's when the lights were you could see them quite easily. So basically, I don't know if it was moving along the freeway. I actually had a chat to my dad a bit earlier. He seems to think it was moving, and he was probably in his 40s or 50s or something, so his memory would probably be a bit better than mine. So I assume it was moving towards us, and basically we just went straight underneath it. And essentially when I saw it, I kind of like, after he said it was a UFO, that kind of freaked me out a little bit. So my brother, who was like 16 or 17, he was a real piss taker and whatever. So he's sitting there and he's going, "Oh, it's coming back," as a joke. So meaning that once we'd gone, it turned around and come back. But he was literally just doing that to be a smartass. But yeah, essentially, like that's the majority of the sighting. And then it was like so that was a Friday night. And can't remember if it was the Sunday or the Monday. There was the Age newspaper. There was a piece in that where people had written into it saying they'd seen it. Like I said, there was hundreds of cars on the freeway, so there was a lot of people who had to have seen it. So yeah, I just basically remember the following couple of days, there was a sighting there, which kind of reinforced to me that it wasn't, a figment of my imagination, and the size of it. And obviously, I mean, you're in a car, so it is quite loud, but if you've ever driven close to an airport or while they're flying over, you can usually hear the jet engines fly, and this thing was dead silent. So
always silent.
So I mean, we couldn't hear anything, but it's not saying there was no sound, but when you're in a car, so you're not hearing a lot. But there was definitely no jet propulsion or anything like that you could hear. So so I guess that was like the majority of like my first sighting, which was that was something that was quite big for me. But yeah, there was not much else other than that. Like, and then obviously like later. Since then, so obviously once that happened, that was one of those things that kind of got me hooked. And it's probably similar to what's happened to you, like after kind of hearing a few stories and stuff. And it's all, it's too coincidental that so many people are seeing things for there not to be something, I guess. So that from there, I just kind of got hooked into it, not like right into it, but like since probably like, I was an adult then. It was just one of those things I'd always just, any type of news regarding that type of stuff, I was always checking out and things like that. So that was the main thing that kind of sparked my curiosity. And then that probably made me stare at the sky more. So anytime I was out, whether it's hunting or doing whatever else that it was, whether it's night, I'm always just looking up. So yeah, I guess that was like the first real thing that kind of got me hooked. And then, then,
before we go to the second one, can I just ask, when you were driving under it, how high do you estimate it was above your car, above the road?
Probably 200 to 300 meters. So
okay.
The angle of observation. So imagine like we must have been, I say, probably about 500 meters away from it when we first noticed it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're looking at an eye level of a van, so you're realistically like 5.5 feet at eye level above the car, and we're basically looking. And I could say at 500 meters, if I was to put my hand out like that, it would be, if the bottom was on the road, the top would be, at full length, it would be at the top. So I would imagine that's around 200 to 300 meters high, and then the length of it was basically spread out over one side of the freeway, through the middle part, and then maybe part of the other lane. So, and the triangle shape. So it was, I would have to say, is as big as like a football field. Was probably the easiest way to kind of gauge for someone else to understand what size it was. So,
And was it kind of like, as far as you could tell, was it kind of just like a triangle, like a solid triangle, or you'd be
yeah,
familiar with the
yeah, definitely a solid object. Like I mentioned earlier, it was one of those nights where it was very dark, but like it wasn't pitch black yet. So when the sky's like a dark blue, so you could see a perfect black triangle outline that stood out from the black to the blue sky kind of thing, like the very, very dark blue, obviously. It was well and truly night, but just not fully pitch black yet. Yeah.
Does that is it similar to some of the descriptions of like the Phoenix lights?
Kind of. So the Phoenix lights, when that in '93, most people describe that as a boomerang shape.
Right.
Yep. So there's been a few people who have described it in different ways, and there's people who are saying it was like 800 feet long. But the generic thing I've heard about that is it was a boomerang type shape. This was definitely a full triangle, solid object with no cutouts or anything like that.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But the thing that kind of got me is, and I don't know why, but it had flashing lights. And normally flashing lights are used like with an airline or something like that, but they were just like a red dot. It looked like on each corner. There's a lot of things around a craft that apparently was built by the US military called, it's like the TRB 4-5 or something. I forget what it is. You might be able to Google it. It's TRB or something like that, which was supposed to be a military craft that they made, which was a triangle. However, this thing was just, compared to what I know about that, was just so much bigger. Like it was huge.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm absolutely no idea what it was, but that was like something that was so big. I mean, like I said, even my brother and my dad, like I only spoke to them about it at Christmas time again, just to kind of reignite the conversation. They were like, yeah, shit, that was pretty freaking weird, hey? Like it was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. So it was so much so that it just kind of got me hooked on the subject, just more out of curiosity and things like that, because it's just so bizarre.
Yeah. And just quickly, do you have do you know what the date was of that?
I don't. So what I've done, I don't know. I don't know the date. I honestly can't remember the time of year or anything like that. I don't think it was daylight savings. Not that narrows it down too much, but I had a look back over. There was like, whether it's through MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network, which is like a reporting thing that's a global thing. I had a look through their files and their history of sightings and stuff, and I couldn't find anything on it, which was weird because it was 100%. It was I forget which newspaper. I'm pretty sure it was The Age. That's what my dad was saying earlier today. But yeah, there was nothing. There's no documented that I could find. Like I haven't had a huge look, but I did have quite a bit, because I just wanted to see what other people, if there was something online, what other people had said about it. Because as you know, like your memory can be quite bad. You think you're seeing something, and how you recall it, this is now 20 years later. It completely could be different, but
Yeah.
that's why I had a quick chat to my dad, and we kind of had both got the same rough kind of idea or thing about what happened. We kind of got the same story, so we both are basically, and I guess that's what helps when you've got other people who to back you up. You can kind of bang off them and see, yeah, and that's the thing. It's like if you're just seeing something by yourself, it's hard to to say to anyone, because it could be anything, but yeah, it was definitely something that obviously we all saw and we were all able to talk about, which kind of, yeah. And I will say that I honestly, I never used to talk about it. I remember maybe when in high school, like I maybe mentioned it to some people, and then that same thing, like the same stigmatized idea of extraterrestrials and even like what South Park doing the whole probing story and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff, and it just kind of added that, the thing that you felt like you're a nutter for talking about it. And so I guess that's actually made me feel better about myself, and like things like obviously what you're doing right now is that it's kind of got to that point where people actually are starting to listen and starting to believe about what people are seeing. So that's kind of what's got me excited about it now, just kind of hearing other people's stories and experiences. And you kind of want someone else to have something similar to you, because then that really justifies what you saw, and you don't feel like an idiot for saying, about some bizarre craft that you saw or whatever like that. So
Mm.
yeah, it's been a pretty fun little ride.
Yeah, I bet. So you've also had another one which you've also sent me a video that you took, which, to be honest, it's pretty weird. It's pretty weird what you captured.
Yeah, so that one, there was. I'll have the date stamped because it's on my, on your iPhone. If you look the
Mm.
location when you look at photos, so I can actually go back and see because it's got the. But yeah, that was maybe 2 years ago. I live in Brisbane now, but I used to live in Newcastle. I used to go back and forth quite a bit, and I was on the way back from Brisbane to Newcastle, heading southbound. I was about 20k south of Port Macquarie, and as I was driving along the Pacific Freeway there, heading southbound, same thing. The freeway's got a lot of canopy that goes around it, so the trees are quite tall and they're very, very close to the freeway. So you only get small patches when it opens up, or looking straight ahead where you can see open sky and things like that. And it was one of those times, the road eventually just curves and goes down the freeway there, where there was this light that I saw in the sky from, it could have been 15 to 20 kilometers away, and it just looked like I was sitting still, but it looked like it was kind of below some of the distant mountains, so it didn't look like it was up in the sky too far. And then as I kept going around, I'd see it for like another 2 seconds in that same kind of area, and I just kept going, kept driving, and then every time it opened up, I would see a bit more, and then it got to a point where I had noticed it. It looked like it had gone higher than what it was, but obviously, as I was getting close, the angle of observation changes quite a lot, so you never really know, and especially at night, it's really hard to gauge heights. But yeah, essentially, as I was coming around one of the bends, I saw it a lot closer, and that was kind of where I was in my car and I was looking up, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's that light. And when I was looking through the window, obviously driving, it's a bit hard to see. It looked like a circle object that had lights that were morphing from like red to like white to almost green, but like not like flash red, flash green. It was like just morphing the colors around it. Like it kept changing colors, and it looked like it was like solid round lights around the outside of it.
Mm.
And so it got to a point where I could see it quite clearly. And it was on a bit of a bend heading around to the left, and the strip on the side of the road, like the emergency lane, was quite skinny in that area, and then it was just like a wire fence and then bushland, like really thick. So I pulled the car over, and I thought, shit, I really want to try and get some footage of this thing because I don't know what it is at this stage. So I pulled my car over enough to get out. I got my phone out, literally threw it up. I mean, it was an iPhone 11, so they got a small sensor, so you never really get good night footage. So basically, I threw it up, started recording. Actually, when I first got out, I thought I started filming, and I was up there looking, and I had it on the camera for maybe 20 or 30 seconds, and I realized I actually hadn't pressed record because
Yeah.
I was like, I got out, I was almost shaking because I was like, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. So I got out and I thought I'd press record, and I'm like, oh shit, I looked down, I hadn't actually pressed record. So I banged it again, started filming, but as I started filming, I noticed there was like I could see the lights, there was a truck coming behind me, and my car was almost on, like its driver side wheels were almost on the freeway lane because it was such a small emergency stopping lane. So it was like 10 o'clock at night. So I'm like, shit, if a truck comes around, they could potentially just clean me up. So I only got to film it for like, yeah, whatever it was, 5 seconds or something like that. And it's pretty crappy footage. But if you pause it and zoom in, you can kind of see the shape of the craft. Same thing. It was like, I mean, I could hear trucks in the distance, couldn't hear any sound. Very hard to tell how high that was, but it could have been up to a kilometer or more in the sky.
Mm.
Like it wasn't nowhere near as close to my first sighting, but enough for me to film it. And as a general rule, I mean, this doesn't work all the time, is anytime I see something like that, I go onto the flight tracker app that you can get on your phone just to double check if there was a plane or anything. But this thing definitely looked like it was kind of sitting still. But yeah, that one was just another one of those weird things you see in the sky. And yeah, obviously happened to grab some footage, and I don't know if I sent you the whole footage or a screenshot, but yeah, I'm happy to obviously send it back to you to have another look at it or whatever. But I will say something that was quite weird, almost in that same area, and this is maybe a year later. So this might have been last year, maybe very early last year. I was driving. I would say it was within about 15 kilometres of that same area. Um, Almost the same thing, heading southbound towards Newcastle from Brisbane. And I saw two just red lights, kind of weirdly on an angle, like it's hard to say, like that'd be a vertical angle. They were kind of on an angle like this, and they were just going through the sky at a weird, like a lowish altitude, 500 meters up. And as I watched those, they kind of just went through and then just went kind of straight up into the sky
Wow.
and then just kept going until they just disappeared. And that was in a similar spot. But that was like, obviously, that was quite a quick thing. It was, over 10 seconds or something like that. But it was just that area was just a bit weird. There's been like two things that I couldn't explain there. But, the second sighting was, I can't say I know what it was, but anything that kind of moves that fast in the sky then kind of just heads up until it disappears. Like, I assume it's not a jet, but, it could have been anything.
So how far apart was that one from the second one that you were just describing that you caught on film?
15 to 20 kilometers away in the same area. Like, it was south of Port Macquarie.
But was that sorry, in terms of time?
A year, probably a year later.
A year later. So you've had three pretty weird sightings.
No, I've had more than that.
Really?
Oh yeah. So there's another one. So another one that was quite a good one, and this is great because so when I was traveling back and forth Newcastle to Brisbane, it was my girlfriend. I live in Brisbane now, but I was doing a long distance thing with my girlfriend, so I was coming up and down all the time. And so I'd obviously told her about those things I'd seen, and she was like super interested, like, "Oh, I'd love to see something like that." I'm like, "Yeah, like, God, it's pretty weird, but yeah." So we'd always talked about it quite a bit, and so not last Christmas, but the Christmas before, so the 2022 into 23 year, we were down at my farm in northeast Victoria, and we've got this deck at the back of our house, and we were both out there. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and it was it was obviously, it was just after Christmas or just before Christmas, a day either side of it. So, it was a warm summer's night, and we were just standing out on this little deck that's at the back of our house, and we're just looking up at the mountains and the sky, and we saw a few satellites and things like that, pretty just normal stuff we were seeing. And so Alison, my girlfriend, was right beside me to my left, and I was kind of looking up the hill into the sky, and I noticed like something like orange above the hill to my left-hand side, enough to catch in my peripheral vision. I looked up and I'm like, I saw something got my eye. I definitely saw something. I looked up and then I looked and there was nothing there. And I said to Alison, I'm like, I swear I just saw like an orange light above the mountain. And I don't know what it was, but I'm like, I saw something. And she's like, oh, okay, cool. And anyway, we just kept like standing up there, and it might have been like 3 or 4 minutes past after that. And I was kind of looking back straight ahead, and then I noticed that orange thing, and I was looking, I'm like, oh shit, there it is again. And so above the hill, looking kind of southish, there was like an orange orb or something. It was just like a round ball, and I would say probably 3 to 4 times the size of how Venus looks in the sky. I don't know if you've looked at Venus. It's like usually like one of the brightest stars in the sky. So this could have been like a long distance away, but yeah, it was this giant orange ball. Not giant, but a orange ball that was a lot bigger than any stars. And so we just kind of saw it above the mountain, and as we were looking at it, then it just kind of started moving across the sky, and we watched it for maybe 45 seconds. And as it went across the sky, it was getting slower, faster, and it was like kind of doing like a little S, not like an S, but it wasn't going in a straight trajectory, and it wasn't moving like at a constant speed. It was going slow, fast, and then kind of moving around a little bit. And Alison and I were honestly, we were just prefixed on this, just staring at it, and both like literally were not talking. We're just sitting there going like dead set, just our mouths open. And as we watched it go across the sky for probably 30 seconds, it got to a point and slowed down, and then it went and just shot off up into space and left like a light trail when it went.
Like a shooting star kind of thing?
Like a shooting star, but it wasn't. It was just, we watched it, and then it stopped for a second, and then it just went and just disappeared up into space or wherever it went. And that was another good one, only because I had someone else to verify what I'd seen, and like she was just like in absolute awe. She's like, I can't believe like we've seen something. So yeah, that was another one that had happened. And then Christmas just gone, because now she's like a little obsessed with kind of just going out and staring at the stars. So the Christmas just gone, like 3 months ago, we were back down there and we just took the motorbike out for a ride at night, just around the paddocks and things like that. And same thing, we went out and we just looked up at the sky and we saw, a few satellites again. And then again, we saw, so that first orb that we saw, that was a very orange light. But then this time we saw like a very blue kind of light, like a whitey blue light that was just kind of going through the sky. But it was the same thing. It was kind of just moving and just doing odd turns and angles. Nothing like, left to right or nothing fast. It was just kind of slowly moving and then it would just kind of go up and then down. And we maybe watched that for like, I don't know, 30 seconds until it just kind of looked like it faded away. But like that was something like you don't know, but like I don't know anything else in the sky that, is just a solid light, nothing flashing, that kind of moves quite slowly and then it just ends up disappearing. So that one, yeah, I don't know. It's just weird.
That's a lot of sightings, man.
Another, I know it sounds crazy.
No.
More.
What have you ever weird question, but have you ever tried to communicate with them?
So I know it sounds so silly. So that one when my girlfriend and I saw it 2 Christmases ago, the orange orb that shot up into space. So I mean, if you've gone down the UFO lore, you're probably seeing a few names. So there's a guy called Stephen Greer, Dr. Stephen Greer.
Yep, that's yeah, totally the
so
the track I was going down.
Yeah, exactly. So he's got that CE5 protocol. But that guy in particular, I don't rate that much because his whole thing, he's trying to like monetize like what he's doing and trying to make money out of it. I don't know, for whatever reason, I just get a bit of a weird vibe off him. But from all aspects, what I've heard about this CE5 protocol, where people are like, I guess, manifesting, seeing things. Anyway, so after that, we saw that thing move around and then shoot off up into space. Funnily enough, Alice and I hadn't communicated this, but it's one of those things. It just sounds freaking stupid, but in my head, I was kind of just predicting, like, just saying in my mind, like, if there is something out there, like, something could show any sign or anything, like, I was just kind of thinking about this, looking up, going, if there is anything out there, like, just show us. I even think I said something like in my mind, just something like, oh, if you do show us, like, I won't tell anyone, or so, I don't know, like I was just doing this stupid shit in my head. And then so we saw it, and then I didn't say anything to Alison. So the next day, she goes to me, she goes, we saw that thing last night. In my head, I was like, please show me something. Just show us any sign of anything. And I'm like, bullshit, I was doing the exact same thing. So, like you said, the C5 thing, I don't know. Maybe that's what it was. Who knows? But we were both definitely mentally thinking about seeing something. So chalk that up to whatever you want. I don't know. Like, it could be just rubbish, but we both were thinking or projecting out there that we wanted to see some sign or see something, and we did. So
there's this guy called Chris Bledsoe. Have you heard of him?
Certainly have.
You have?
Yes. Yeah. He wrote a book called UFO of God.
Yep. That's the one. That's the one. I listened to a podcast of him that Andy actually sent me a little while ago, and it's pretty crazy. It's pretty a lot of that stuff, just orbs appearing to him constantly. It seems like a lot of people in the US, NASA and intelligence were very interested in him, which seems to check out with a lot of his photography of his relationships with these people. It's pretty weird. It's pretty damn weird. A lot of it seems to be about telepathically communicating with these kind of orbs. It's weird.
So another thing that's quite weird. So I was talking to my dad because I read his book. It was a little while ago now, but so my parents, I haven't seen this personally. So my parents and my sister have all seen what I guess we'd call like the min lights or orbs in the bush right behind my house. And I'm talking, they see them like maybe 2 to 3 times a year.
Really?
And it was only just ever my parents who had seen them. However, they were overseas maybe last year, I think it was. And my sister was just looking after the house down there. And she was leaving the house one night to go whatever time it was night. But she said that she had seen an orb or a ball of light floating through the bush near our house. And it was enough for her to call up mum and dad and say, hey, that stuff you've been talking about, I just think I saw it, like this light just kind of hovering and just moving through all the trees in the bush. And like I said, they sleep with their doors open all the time. It's like they're boomers are allergic to using power and air conditioning, so they always just have their doors open and just great, just letting some air in. But the thing that they always said is quite funny. They often wake each other up. So if I can't remember whose side of the bed the window's on, I think it's my mum's. But so she'll wake up and what she'll say is she will wake up and just look and they'll be there. It's like whether that's woken her up or anything, but whether there's I don't know some type of energy or something. But she was saying that her and my dad would both wake up and they would be looking out into the bush. Like our house is literally right in the forest, and so they'd be looking out. And they said the weird thing is when you're looking at these things, and sometimes they move slowly. It's like it's the way they describe it. It's almost on a weird plane of light where they say you look at it, and then if you pop your head down, it's almost like it like disappears. And then when you get back up to that same level, it's like it's there, and then you go above it, and it's kind of like almost morphs down. And they're like, it's just this weird thing, like where your eyes go up and down, but in this plane of light, they can see it in a certain spot. But as soon as they change their angle, it kind of like shrinks or disappears. So, I don't know. That's what they keep seeing up there, which is that's pretty bizarre as well. So yeah, there's been some pretty weird things happen around that area anyway. So
Wow. So what did you say? Like every year?
they've seen it a lot. Yeah, they might see it once, twice a year.
Have they had
They've been
any like closer encounters? Any kind of more direct or?
No, where the bush is, like outside their bedroom, that's probably like 50 meters away, and I think it's all within about 50 meters. But they did say it's quite hard to gauge whether it's. They have mentioned this, whether it's very close to them or very far away. They said it's quite hard to gauge where they are, and I think sometimes they've said they've seen them in the bush, like whether it's illuminating the trees or anything like something like that. But they have told me times where it's hard to focus to see if it's really quite close to you or quite far away. So I don't know. I will say one funny thing. So that property has been in our family, I think since the late 1800s or early 1900s or whatever. And so my mum's father, it was his farm, and he'd said that he'd seen the same things in that bush. And my grandmother, she no longer lives on the property in a nursing home, but she lives at the front of our property. So it's kind of like it's in the middle of a valley. So she lives down the flats and then it goes up the hill. So our house is up in the hill. She has not been up to our house in like 30 years because she's absolutely shit scared because I haven't actually asked her, which I probably should. She's probably not going to be around for a lot longer, but she would never go back up there because she saw something at some point that scared the absolute shit out of her. And I'm sure my mum said that it was something to do with lights up in the bush. And she won't go back there. Like she hadn't been up to our house in like literally 40 years.
Wow. And you have no idea what she saw?
No, I should ask her, and I don't know how her memory is now. She's got a bit of dementia, so who knows? But I'm sure my mum said, I know she's 100% she won't go up there because she's frightened of the bush. And I'm sure my mum said that it was to do with seeing some form of light or energy up there or whatever it is. Yeah.
Mate, you need to get sensor activated cameras stat.
Well, yeah, I haven't actually seen. I think I've put like trail cameras up there to monitor the deer numbers and stuff that are walking out of the property, and I've never seen anything on those before. I haven't got the area at the moment, but yeah, I have got that type of stuff up there, but I've never noticed anything on it.
Right. So is that have you seen more things, or is that kind of the...
I did a hunting trip, or I filmed a trip for a company called Under Armour. So they had one of their athletes, this guy Cameron Haynes from America. He's from so he came over to Australia, and we did like a 3 or 4 week filming trip, and we were up in Arnhem Land, I think it was Arnhem Land. I know it's like just outside Kakadu in Northern Territory.
Yep.
Whatever the road that goes to Kakadu, like there's one road that goes in. It was just on the left-hand side, wherever that is, like 10K from Kakadu. So in that forest area there. And we were out on one of those like side-by-side ATV buggies. And myself and Cam were in the very back of it, and it had like 2 rows of seats. So there was the other filmers and some other guys in the front. And we both saw, I haven't actually asked him much about it. I remember at the time I asked him about it, but it was just weird. And like, it was just a bizarre thing, but it looked like, from my memory, like it's very, very quick. This was like only a few seconds. As we were looking at it, looked like, it was like it looked for me, it looked like almost like an egg, but it looked like, imagine like an egg or some type of, maybe it could have been like people said, like a tic tac shape, but it was more. It seemed like not so much horizontal, but more vertical. Like it was longer
Mm.
as it was tall than what it was wide. And the weird thing about this white thing, it basically, the best way to describe it, it kind of just came into our view and then just like did a turn and then just disappeared. And I'm like talking like within not even a second and a half or whatever it was. It was super quick, but it was enough because I thought it was a shooting star. But the fact that it came in and turned and then went, but it looked like, the best way to describe it, like whether it was self-illuminated, but the way that I described it, the best way, it was like it had spotlights pointing at it, like it was coming down, but the light was like, it
On
had
it.
like direct light onto it, like
Mm.
point light on it. Obviously, there was nothing, not that I saw it, there was nothing that you could see pointing light at it, but that was just the way, whether that just means it was self illuminated or I don't know, like what it was, but something, it was very bright, like a white, very, very white, like is the best way to describe it. It looked like an egg that just came into vision and then went zoof and just took off. And it, like I said, it was within a second or something like that.
How big?
Maybe like, as a just rough guess, like the size of a car, maybe.
And
Like
how
not, it
close?
didn't look. Um, it could have been. It could have been like, I don't know, five. I don't know, a kilometer or more. It wasn't. It wasn't super close. It wasn't like where I was like it's right there, but it was. It was out a fair way, but not
Mm.
like super far. It's so hard to gauge at night. But as a
Yeah.
guess, I would say a K or two away or something like that. Yeah.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah. So
Far
other than
out.
that, like that was so quick that like that was basically the main description. Just came in, looked like an egg almost, and then it just took off. And then another time, my friend Xavier and me were up at our hunting cabin, and I definitely know it was around this time of year because it was around that March April time of year. That's when we were up there hunting, and we saw, the best way to describe it. You know, you got like a light bar on a ute, like the like a whatever, like a long bar of light.
Hmm.
It was like that, but just solid red and like very long. And this was just, we just saw something like over the mountains, just kind of floating away. And this, we're up near this town called Scone. It was heading towards the coast, towards like Newcastle and stuff. But we watched it for a few minutes. But yeah, it was just looked like a solid red light that was just really long. So it was quite, not super far away. Like it could have been 100 meters long or something, maybe. Like it was quite large. But
Mm.
we just watched this plain, and it was dark as well. Like I couldn't see anything else, no other flashing, but it's just like a plain red light, and it was just moving away from us. And we both were like, "What the hell is that?" And so where our cabin is, it's up in the hills a little bit, but the guy who owns the property, his house is right down the front. And I knew he'd already texted me, because he'd texted me that he was, that morning or whatever, he'd just gotten up. And I actually called him. I said, "Hey John, can you see that over the hills?" And I'm sure that's what he said. He said he saw like part of it or something. So that was enough to get three people, because I was like, "Hey, we're looking at this thing. Can you see what it is?" But we were looking at, like, he's kind of down here, so he'd be looking sideways at it. But yeah, he said he saw something moving, but by the time I got onto him, it was already pretty much gone.
Mm. So you're, I'm assuming you're pretty well read in the kind of subject, since, I mean, if you've seen this many and you've been pretty into it, just based on some chats we've
Yeah,
kind of had on Instagram.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's one of the, with podcasts and stuff. Like, obviously, yeah, I'm pretty connected to all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm no expert, obviously, but
Yeah, sure.
yeah,
Well, what do you, with having had that many experiences and sightings, I'm guessing that you trust your senses pretty well, especially, as a hunter,
yeah,
you must trust your senses. And once or twice, maybe once you're like, oh, I don't know, but have you seen something that many times? And they seem like pretty clear sightings. And based on everything that you've read, listened to, and just kind of uh, studied, I guess. What do you think is the most likely explanation, or something that just makes the most sense to you, as to what these might be?
yeah. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know, man. That's the hardest part, is that um, I have absolutely zero idea. However, I guess if I was going to take a guess, I mean, I'm just, the thing that I don't necessarily like, and people have asked me, like, so what do you think it was? I'm like, I don't know how many people actually know what it was. So it's
Mm,
very, very hard to make a guess or anything like that about what it could be. But based off information that I've read and things like that, I'm confident that we have craft of some sort visiting this planet or Earth, whether they're coming in from outer space or interdimensionally or anything like that. That part I have got no idea. And maybe it's column A, column B, and maybe there's a column C or up to Z on how these things interact with humanity or this planet, or whether they were here before us or anything like that. But I'm very confident that there is some form of technology, whether it be alien, non-human, in alien being anything from like a technology to a physical being. I don't know. All reports say, there's, what I've read is multiple species and multiple beings or whatever visiting Earth. I think there was like a report from like the 1950s, and they had, I think, 12. It's hard because there's so much misinformation with this subject, so much just
mm,
fuckery with it. You never really know what's true and what's not. But there was a little handbook, and I think it was from like the 1950s, and I don't know if that was given to people at the start of Project Blue Book, where they were doing investigations of craft, and so part of that craft retrieval type thing is that they had a booklet that let them identify from the knowledge that other people had from different craft retrievals about what they could expect, and everything from like the typical grey alien that we've kind of seen with the almond-shaped eyes and things that you
mm-hmm,
see in media and things like that, to like ones that look how they describe as oriental, of Asiatic looking, more human-like, but and then from tall greys to ones that look like insects, like praying mantis, to
praying mantis, yeah.
yeah, mantis, and then to like what they call Nordics, like the tall blonde ones that look human but just not quite. Then to reptilian type looking beings and things like that, and a few that are in between all of those. So I got no idea, Jack, but
Yeah.
it seems to me that in particular, the grey alien that we see is, there's been so many reports of abductions and sightings and things like that where people have described that same thing. And I tend to believe there's no coincidence in that. I think that people are seeing something of that shape and form. Um, what that is, I've got absolutely no idea.
Mm. Yeah, I think a lot of people switch off, particularly with the greys, or more people who might not be into this subject. Definitely
Yep.
people I've spoken with, and they think that, like, what are the odds that the grey aliens are the same things that have always been depicted in pop culture or movies or whatever? But I mean, I think it's probably, I went back and watched Close Encounters, Steven
Yep.
Spielberg's,
Yeah.
first UFO film, and I mean, he's pretty well researched, actually, Steven Spielberg,
Yeah,
in
I've,
that.
I've
Like,
heard, I've heard the movie. There's a lot of things in the movie. I haven't watched it in so long. I remember watching it like 15, 20 years ago or something. I haven't watched it recently, but what I've heard from podcasts and stuff, that there's a lot of things in that movie that people are like, it's people who are apparently in the know, who have been in these black projects and things like Area 51 and S4 and all those type of things, who say that the information he was given about um, the aliens or whatever was too close to reality from what people have already understood, and they're saying that someone was actually giving him information and making it as realistic as possible.
hmm. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's easy to be like, oh, Steven Spielberg, for example, along with other people who have made sci-fis, oh, they created those beings out of thin air. But if someone's interested enough to make a film about, aliens or whatever, or UFOs visiting us, it wouldn't surprise me that they might actually spend a fair bit of time researching the subject to try and make it as interesting, or try and scratch the itch that interests them about it the most. So I don't think it's that weird that pop culture depicts those creatures if that's what most people are reporting. So anyway, I
Yeah.
mean that's just my yeah, take on that kind of skepticism.
What got you interested in it, Jack?
I've always been interested in it since I was a kid. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Just always very interested
Yeah.
in aliens as a kid. Loved
Yeah.
hearing people's stories about it. I kind of stopped, kind of faded, not faded, just different priorities, and then obviously. I don't know, a bit later in life, probably like very early 20s, started getting into much more weird esoteric ideas. And yeah, I mean, I saw one thing which was pretty weird. But again, it's one of those things where time passes and I don't know what it was. It definitely wasn't something so crazy that I'm like, that definitely was a UFO. But basically I was there were two other people with me
Mhm.
and I was probably around 22 or something.
Yeah.
Um something like that, early 20s. And we were at this kind of festival thing and we are leaving, which the context doesn't help because the festival was Entheogenesis Australis, which is a gathering in the bush about plant medicine and psychedelic medicines
Yeah.
and healing. So it was a
Right.
psychedelic information exchange, but
That's
I actually was not
it's like
on any psychedelics. um
exactly. And it's hard
yeah,
because you might as well leave that part out and just say, "Oh, here was my experience," because as soon as you tell the former, people are like,
sure.
"Oh, of course."
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah. Totally. But I was
Yeah.
with two other people and I was hitching a ride with this dude back. I was taking a piss by a tree. It was probably like 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. And then someone goes, "Whoa, what's that?" And I turn around and there was this very, very bright light in the sky. It looked like a very brighter than any star in the sky.
Yeah.
And it was moving, kind of like it was, yeah, anyway, it was moving kind of slowly, and then it kind of changed direction, which is not typically what you'd
Unusual.
see of a satellite or anything coming into the atmosphere. Something changing direction. It looked quite controlled, and
Yep.
then it started getting really, really bright, like as if you did you ever burn magnesium in science class or anything?
Absolutely.
It goes
Yeah. Yeah.
really almost hurt your
Yeah.
eyes, but really bright and bigger, and then eventually just disappeared, just dim and gone. I thought it was just getting really big and bright, and then but someone else was like, I thought that was coming down to land. I don't know what the hell
Yeah.
that was, but we three of us saw it, and it was very strange. Fully admit the context does not help. I mean, I don't know what it was. I don't. I've
Whether
not
this,
seen anything else since. So,
yeah,
unfortunately.
and whether this is credence to yourself, but that description of what you saw, I mean, like I said, I listened to a lot of things about sightings and stuff. That what you saw is very common,
Mm,
very common.
yeah,
As
yeah.
if the orb gets bigger and then kind of shuts off or goes away. That's pretty common. Yeah.
Mm. And it was just white light, like the same color as the stars. It wasn't like a
Yeah.
glowing orange or anything. It was just a
No.
white light. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I find it very fascinating. I think the thing that's mostly convinced me over the recent years that it's a true phenomenon, definitely worth paying attention to. Probably the thing that convinced me was mass sightings.
Yeah.
Phoenix Lights would be the main one I would point anyone to if they want to check out some
Yep.
pretty weird shit. Whole city in America, in Phoenix, Arizona,
Yep.
saw, and like you described, football field or multiple football field sized
Yeah.
triangular boomerang sized craft. Whole city saw it. And there's many. The more you look, the more you find.
Yeah.
And it's worldwide, and it's in Australia, and it's been in Melbourne, and it's been in every bloody continent. And also the amount of very, very high profile ex-military, ex-intelligence people who have gone on the record talking about it, who have nothing to gain
No.
reputationally, is
Yeah.
sure you can dismiss it, but or you can
Yeah.
actually
And
look at it and be like, wait, what?
yeah. And that's what's always kind of got me when there's people who talk about it who've kind of got everything to lose. It's like, why would they bring it up? I mean, I don't
Hmm.
know. And that's, I guess, you know, especially with, I mean, I guess, I mean, most of this seems to be governed by the US government. Everything seems to be under wraps, especially with the whole Five Eyes with Canada and New Zealand, Australia, and the UK, and all that kind of stuff. America seems to have their hand over the whole thing.
Yep.
Just so many stories about like there's the case in Virginia in Brazil.
Yep.
So
James Fox did a good doco on that.
one, and so there's flight records of when they, for people who hadn't heard the story, basically people had either seen something crash and then there was beings running through the street, these little kind of like dark red oily beings that smelt of sulfur and things like that. They had these kind of little horn things on their head. That was the description that many people had got. But after that, they'd taken one of these beings to a hospital, and there's records of like doctors actually working on it and things like that. And the policeman who took it in there, he got some type of disease or something from it, and he ended up passing away from it. But there's, back to the America having control, there's flight logs of whatever is a C-130, one of the military airplanes, landing at one of the close airports, and was literally there for like 12 hours, grabbed whatever they did from the hospital, packed up, and then they just flew back to, I think it was like Nellis Air Force Base in the US. Like, they've got the logs of all that. So it's been so like governed by the US, I guess, like those secret, or whatever you want to call them, programs of crash retrievals and things, that they just kind of got their fingers in all the pies. So I guess my hope is, going forward, is something like the Phoenix Lights, something like that happening somewhere, whether it's America here, whatever, where you've got, the advancements in technology and phones and cameras and all that type of stuff, where it's a big sighting like the Phoenix Lights, where there's literally 10,000 people seeing something. They've all got cameras up, and we're like, okay, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Where the media have to kind of say something. They can't just sweep it under the rug, because people can be like, hey, we want to know what's going on here. So I guess that's kind of like, I mean, as far as what's happening with Congress in the US and things like that, about releasing information and whistleblowers and all that type of stuff, that's always going to be hard to get out, because there's just something or someone who's just stomping it down at every corner. Whereas I think we'll be closer to getting a larger sighting or something like that before, America's saying, hey, yes, we have got retrieved craft, there is aliens and everything else like that. So I think that's probably where my hopes lie in humanity actually figuring it out for themselves before I guess drip fed to us.
What do you think that could be the big secret that the authorities, provided all of this stuff is true, provided there is a massive cover up in the US intelligence and military and Pentagon, whatever, or the deep state, whatever, provided all that is true, and there is a massive thing that they will protect at all costs, and the reports are that they regard it higher secrecy than the nuclear nuclear information, or of nuclear weaponry. What do you reckon the secret that they cannot afford to let out is?
I think it's religion.
Yeah, that's kind of where I've been thinking too, particularly after this Bledsoe guy.
Yeah, I think it's the implications to religion, and knowing that, and it's great because it's fun speculating, because it's a fun topic to think about. And what I think it could be, I think if there was, the Earth is whatever 13 billion years old, or whatever it is, or the universe rather. We've only been here for like a millisecond, like literally a millisecond, as in humanity or whatever. So I absolutely believe that there could have been people, things, whatever, here prior to us. A few people have said that it's like we've possibly had our DNA changed at some point to advance the species and things like that, and all of this might change how religion is viewed by certain people. I'm not saying certain things may not have happened, biblical things. I think a lot of the stuff in that could be true, but the idea of God and things like that might be different to what we think, is what I believe might be happening. Is there's in scripture of like people talking about the burning shields and chariots coming from the sky with gods coming down from the sky and visiting the people of Earth. It's like, you can sum it up to, yeah, it was a miracle of God or something like that. Or potentially it was the same things that we're seeing here coming down to visit people or whatever it might be.
Hmm.
And back whenever that may have been, it's like, well, how else do you describe it? You describe it with what you know and what you have on hand. Like they said, it was a burning shield. People see discs, shields, things like that. So yeah, I don't know, man. I think that's the biggest thing, and I think things like technology, potentially like where we fit in as far as the universe, as far as Homo sapiens and everything like that. I think we don't, or we don't know. We already don't really know. We've got an idea of how it all started, and the different species of humans that existed, like, but we don't know the answers. We just don't know. So
Hmm.
there is a chance that someone else or something else does know.
Right, right. I mean, even, like the nativity scene of Jesus being born, the three wise men followed the star in the sky that led them to I mean, stars don't lead you anywhere. Stars are stars. Unless
Yep.
it was like, I don't know, the story I was just describing, it looked like a star and it moved. And, if you followed that star, for example, I mean, that's the only framework you've got. So it would make
Absolutely.
sense why that story would say that.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing about if it was the at least I don't know the Abrahamic religions, for example, or a lot of the biblical stories and our origin. If it actually the secret was something about religion, I mean that's no small thing. I mean the religions are like some of the biggest power structures in the world. If
Yeah.
if it turns out that it's actually different. It wasn't a god; it was UFOs, or we were, Adam and Eve was actually like some kind of manipulation story of yeah, genetic modification or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are going to be very lost, very angry,
Yeah.
very and a lot, yeah, it's not a, it's that is something where I could see when they say the masses couldn't handle the truth. I could see if that was the explanation, if it was along that lines, that's where I could see the masses not
Yeah.
handling the truth.
But what do you think? Like, if it's I mean, it's obviously hard to speculate, but like, if what we're saying is correct, let's say we were genetically engineered, modified at some point in humanity where intelligence or whatever has been, we've changed, how we were from literal like stone apes into a functioning entity. Do you think this information will possibly eventually have to come out? Like, do you think it'd be better to have, like, what they say, like a soft disclosure, like what they're kind of doing now, like information just slowly comes out, all the time? Do you think like that would be the best way to do it, or is it just the band-aid and you say, hey, by the way, religion's not true, it was A, B, and C? Like, where do you go with it?
I mean, I couldn't fathom how big the secret is. I mean, if it's just that there is life out there and they're visiting us, I think the masses can totally handle that. That I think the masses would want to know that. If it's as
Yeah.
big as something like what we're just discussing, yeah, I don't know. I mean, personally, I just want them to fucking get on with it. I want to know. I want validation for all this stuff. I think, I mean, personally, I could admit maybe I get carried away with this stuff, but I'm pretty damn convinced it's legit. I don't think there's much that could really talk me off, talk me out of it at this point. Just how much stuff I've kind of looked at. I mean, but I would like some proof as well. I would very much like some proof. There's a lot of bullshit out there. There's a lot of nonsense out there. There's a lot of probably like on purpose disinformation to make it seem really wacky, to discredit it as well. But I think, I don't know. I have no idea what to make of those alien mummies that came out at the end of last year. I know that the results have come back that saying their DNA is 100% human. I think they've concluded that they are dolls that are assembled of human bones and animal bones. Maybe that's just a fucking story as well.
I don't know. I mean, I who
I don't know.
released, yeah, the guy who released that Haim or Jamie,
Hmm.
he's been known to do a little bit of fuckery as well within the
Yeah,
thing, and it's
I've heard.
that's what it's like. The way they did it, it was just kind of like, hey, by the way, we've got these little alien mummies, and people are like, where the hell did this come from? Like, it was just out of left field, and so it's like I said, it's hard, and it's like certain things that Amy had done are legit, but then other things he didn't. So the trying to navigate between truth, lies, and anything in between, especially on this subject, is just so difficult because I guess credit to what we would call the gatekeepers. They've done such a good job in keeping the secret there, and I always feel like they're always a few steps ahead, and it's literally why we've seen. And Ross Coulthard says this all the time. Anytime a news station does a piece on UFOs or aliens, as you know, the X-Files music is the first thing they play because they want to
Yeah.
just say, oh, spooky and stuff like that. And I don't think really people comprehend like how important, if this is true, like we think, like literally how important to us as a species and humanity this is, like literally the biggest thing to be discovered ever, really.
Mm. Mm.
I don't think people fathom like, how important it is or how big this could
Yeah.
be for us. Yeah.
All the implications, yeah, of our origin story, which is where I start to get pretty interested. I very much wouldn't be surprised if we've been genetically tampered with, because just on the basis of that's what we do to everything. I mean,
That's
look at
right.
every dog breed. That's what they were all wolves once. Look at a pug, all of our fruit. Like I think that there's old Renaissance paintings of what watermelons used to look like, and they don't look like what they look like now. They had big
No.
pits and they were yeah, and we've genetically modified our food, our animals. I mean, if a cataclysmic event happened now and they were to find or like a Pompeii like thing where everything was
Yeah.
preserved. And like imagine just seeing all these chicks with fucking lip fillers and fake boobs and fake bums and just the genetic modifications that we've normalized on ourselves, that we
Yeah.
walk past in the street and look at every single day. Like we find these examples of like elongated heads back in the day, and we're like, that is so weird. But we do some really weird stuff. And we do genetic modification in every single direction that we can. So if there's something more intelligent than us that has been keeping an eye on us for a very long time, I just don't think it's that based on our behavior. I don't think it's that unlikely that a little bit of playing God may have gone down.
And
Yeah.
and literally, like, it's only been the last 60 years we've really been doing that, or 60, 70 years,
Mm.
where our technology's kind of got brought forward enough where we can, genetically change, like, look at like what a broccoli used to look like. It used to look
Mm.
like broccoli, like a little thing, and now it's this huge head with a big thick stalk because of everything else. But that's only happened in the last, 67, whatever it is, years. And
Right.
you look at that in comparison to the Earth, and possibly was there another Earth, millions of light years away that where we were at, but like a million years ago, like they were
Mm.
evolving technology like where we are literally a million years ago. And it's like, well, maybe they've got so far ahead where they can travel, they can do whatever they want. Who knows, man? But it's just, I just think that we've just looking specifically at what we've done in the last, 100 years, for example, like we've come so far where just like, and people have talked about this in relation to us reverse engineering like a craft. It'd be like people said, it'd be like giving someone in the Stone Age or even like in the 1900s an iPhone.
Mm.
Sure, they or a motorbike, they might be able to turn it on, but by pressing some buttons, and then they see a screen coming, like, oh wow, this is weird. The screen turns on, and they see apps, and they start pressing things, and things showing up. But like, do they know how to actually build that? Like, absolutely no way.
Mm.
Absolutely no way. And it's like, that's what I've heard about people finding this craft. It's like they find it hard because the things that they're reporting that they do is essentially to us the best way we can describe it is magic.
Yep.
they,
Yep.
they just don't know how it can do all these things because we're just so far behind technologically that we just have no idea how all this works. And there's things like, we might have just been like one Freudian slip away from changing our trajectory with technology, like things like maybe what Nikola Tesla was doing. Maybe he found something that just sent us on a completely different trajectory in our technology, where all of a sudden, like anti-gravitic things we had like in the 50s, who knows? Like it's a bit of a game of luck, but yeah, I just don't doubt this. That if this universe is this big, that there's potentially other civilizations out there that, but maybe matured well before us, and maybe that was 1,000,000 years, maybe that was 100,000 years. In the
Mm.
scheme of things, we have only really kind of changed a lot in the last kind of since 200 or 300 years, really. So
Yeah.
don't know.
I think there's like, I mean, I feel like there's a lot in the Great Pyramids of Giza, and in Egypt. Like that massive structure is,
Yeah,
and the mathematics in that massive structure. Um, like if you can do it now, if you Google the digit of the speed of light, you get a
yeah.
very long digit. And then if you look up the coordinates of the Great Pyramid of Giza,
Of the
yeah,
peak of the
one
pyramid.
of them is the same number.
That's
Uh,
right.
that could be a coincidence, but
Like
given
what?
the amount of maths,
What coincidence is that? Like what
it's
kind of
not
coincidence?
like
Like
and given the amount of mathematics of like pi and phi and all that is also in the pyramid, and just how like linked it is to the stars, like the Orion's belt or whatever. I don't think that's a coincidence. And it did I did listen to this podcast a while ago with Stephen Greer, and he was talking about the speed of light.
yeah,
And uh I don't know how much of the stuff he says is true. I find it interesting, but he was basically talking about, that's the one thing we can't do. We can't break the speed of light. But if we were able to, he had this kind of thing that if we were able to get to a point where we cracked it and we were able to get an object that would move faster than the actual light it was emitting, so you couldn't even see it moving
yeah,
anymore, then a whole new physics could open up. And I almost think
yeah,
that maybe that could be what the Great Pyramid of Giza is. It's a structure that is so gigantic. It's so impossible, and it's also very simple. And it's just a pyramid shape. It's a triangle. It's gonna last. It's like a bookmark on time.
yeah.
It's a bookmark, and there's a puzzle in it, and the whatever longitude or latitude, I can't remember which one, that just being the speed of light and in its exact location. Maybe that's the
Mhm.
puzzle. Maybe that's something that could be a funny thing that we need to like,
I know.
maybe the
And
speed
then,
of light is a
um,
universal puzzle that we need to crack. So
and
anyway,
then you start looking at correlations between the ones in Giza to the ones in Central and South America. It's like, hold on, these are so far apart, yet they have so many similarities between them. And it's like, how, like, people weren't just quickly getting on their private jet and flying over to Sinaloa, wherever, and just going and like, oh, hey, when you make this pyramid, do it like this. Like, all that kind of stuff. It's just, it's so, they're so lined up that it just can't be a coincidence. Surely not.
hmm. Yeah, it's too weird. It's too weird. It seems like something happened a long time ago. Something, maybe there was a visitor. I don't know. I mean, a lot of the biblical stories, there's a lot of miracles in them. There's a lot of really weird things that, I mean, I don't claim to be well read in biblical stories or religious texts, but from what I do know, yeah, there's a lot of strange miracles. There's a lot of odd stories. Fingerprints of the Gods, Graham Hancock stuff is a lot of
Absolutely, yeah.
the, yeah, there's a lot of weird stories about visitors, and I think a lot of them all allude to something coming from the sky. I watched that Steven Spielberg produced documentary on Netflix, Encounters, which I found really interesting as well. And there was a lot of linking very interesting encounter stories to mythology. That was definitely the emphasis on that series. A lot of mythology was being linked, and same thing, Japanese mythology, visitors from the sky. It seems very consistent. So could just all be stories, which I've always kind of fobbed off, or maybe they're, I don't know, closer to truth than we know. I don't know. I don't know. Fun
I
to
don't know,
think about.
but it certainly is as like any information that comes out now, and I will be, I'm the first to be just like absolutely glued to Twitter or X or whatever. Any information,
Mm,
like the people that I follow on there are specifically all around this, just because it's just so interesting.
mm,
And so I, who knows if in your or my lifetime whether we get a big breakthrough, but you know, there's a lot of people pointing towards 2027 for some reason, or 20, yeah, I think 2027, 2026, where I've heard a few people say, oh no, something is going to be coming out around there. But like, you know, it's the same with everything. Who knows? But I'm pretty excited. I don't know, you know, where it's going to lead us or humanity, but I think, you know, as I get older, just understanding more about where we fit in the universe has just always been interesting. So I guess that's kind of also that curiosity is what's led me down this path, because that's the main thing, or one of the main things we just really haven't. I mean, us as the public just don't have any idea what's going on. So
mm.
it's exciting, man. It's really exciting.
Yeah, but people clearly do. There are people out there who do know.
Absolutely.
It seems very much like there are people out there who do know. Maybe not everything, but there definitely seems like there's secrets being kept, and there definitely seems like,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's got to come out. It's got to come out. The appetite's there. It's it's no one secret to hold. It's to do with all of us. So I think people do know what's going on. I think there probably is enough information out there,
Yeah.
that I'm very hopeful that it's going to start coming out. I think there's probably reasons why it started dribbling out the way it's been dribbling out, and yeah, maybe the information can't be stopped for
Mm.
whatever reason.
Like Ross Coulthard's talk about like Australian special forces people doing retrievals here in Australia.
Mm, yeah, yeah, Westall,
Which,
Melbourne.
there you go, yeah, exactly. And you
Mm,
know, we're so far. You know, I mean, obviously, there's a US base in Pine Gap in Central Australia where apparently that's the little hub that they've got there. I mean, it's a big surveillance site, but from what people have said, that's kind of also interconnected with the phenomena as well. So
mm,
who knows, man? It's just there's so many people out there, like ex-military people and things like that, who are coming out of the woodwork and saying, "Hey, no, like there is something here that you guys need to look into." Like I said, they don't gain anything for that. Like a lot of them, you know, they're not doing. They're not. It's not like you get famous from this stuff or whatever. So
mm.
it's if anything, probably the opposite. You probably get infamous, especially if you're in a high-profile position where someone's now going to not take you seriously. So I don't know, Jack. I just hope that something in the next couple of years kind of comes out where it's the yeah, it's the toothpaste out of the tube where it's just going to be too hard to put back in.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, I will like kind of say like one of the reasons of trying, having these kinds of conversations is once I've kind of started talking about this, a lot more people are very willing to kind of tell me about their experience. And I'm hope the one thing I've kind of noticed is just how many people that I know directly who have seen very crazy, weird, unexplainable things. So yeah, if you go on if you're a newcomer to the subject and you go on the internet, there's a lot of videos out there, and some are fake and some are could be real, and it's very hard to kind of decipher. But when I speak to you and we're having a conversation, and you can be like, dude, I actually have this filmed on this phone. This is like,
Yeah,
I think people would actually be surprised how many people in their orbit have
yeah,
seen strange things, and I would just try to encourage people to talk about it more, because I feel like for the first time in probably ever, the stigma definitely seems to be lifted. People aren't ridiculing people for these kinds of stories anymore. People seem to be genuinely more curious more and more, especially as the authorities kind of, the American authorities seem to be, there seems to be something going on with whistleblowers and information coming out. People are taking it more seriously. But yeah, I do encourage people to talk and ask people, their friends and family, if they have seen
yeah.
things, because it is crazy how many people. It's every third person. Every second or third person I know. It
So
seems
I
something.
want to ask, there was Professor oh shit, why am I going to blank his name? Anyway, Ross Coulthard did an interview with a, a geneticist a little while ago. It's on his on the Channel 7 Spotlight YouTube. Um, and he was saying they did like some group studies and about people who had sightings and stuff. And a lot of the he was saying a lot of the time, I forget the group of people they took to do the study on, but there was like people in there who were like married and couples and things like that. I think a lot of them were couples, but it was funny. The people who had sightings, it was all of, I think we can't remember the stat, but literally everyone who had a sighting, they were with like a wife or whatever with someone else who had a sighting. So, well, basically, what he's saying is like, I don't know if people are drawn to each other who have experienced this, or if that's a coincidence as well. But in his study, he was saying that it was 100% of the time the people who had sighting, like they were the people who were together. Like, so I don't know where that comes from, but
Mm,
yeah, I don't know if it's something psychosomatic or if it's just you. I've heard a lot of people saying that you need to want to see it to actually
mm.
see it, and I don't know how that freaking works. Like we're saying with the CE5 stuff, like I don't know if that adds into it, but it's so bizarre. There's so many really weird things that keep coming out that, like you said, that it shouldn't be. It's not a coincidence, or maybe it is. I don't know. It's just so many things that are happening with it that it just doesn't seem like it's a coincidence. I don't know.
Yeah, back in the day when I was really into it, I kind of tapped out when all the spiritual stuff was linked to it. I was like, ah, yeah, bullshit. But man, I'm right back there with it. I mean, the more you really look at it, there does seem to be some weird spiritual connection slash consciousness connection slash manifesting kind of connection to at least the orbs. I don't know if they're all the same phenomenon, but at least the orb kind of phenomenon that seems to appear. There does seem to be some weird back and forth with a lot of interviews that I've watched and things that I've read and people I've spoken to. There does seem to be something there, and that's pretty. That kind of changes some pretty significant worldviews if you're gonna take that as truth, which I'm I'm kind of prepared. I'm more open to the subject of
Yeah,
some weird version of telepathy these days than I have been probably even a year ago.
yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, look, I don't know, but yeah, it's fun. It's interesting and fun.
But that's the hard thing about it is when I talk to people, I get happy because it's fun. It's fun to talk about. It's just fun to speculate, to see where the mind takes the stories and hearing, getting influences from other stories and thinking, shit, this is what this person's experienced. Maybe this is this, and it's crazy. And like, Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's like a proponent for science and space and stuff like that, he's just like, why would they ever come to Earth to view us? Like, why would they waste their time? It's like, we literally have documentary filmmakers set up in a forest just filming ants or whatever
Yeah,
it might be. They're out there
totally.
just monitoring. Like, we're, us as a species is interesting as fuck. Like, we're
Yeah.
blowing shit up where, like, there's wars, there's crazy stuff happening here, like within humanity. Like, why wouldn't something want to monitor it or just check out what's going on?
I was like yelling at my like speakers when I heard him say that. I was just like,
Yeah,
what
that's
the
right. I know.
fuck? Like,
A
how
lot
can
of
you be
people
that
work.
closed-minded? Like,
I
you're an
know.
is he an astrophysicist? Like, what the
Yeah,
like what is going on
yeah,
with that shit perspective?
I know. It's just the fact that they just deny it straight up with, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I find it bizarre that he even said that. Like, why would they be interested in us? We study slugs for God's sake. We study
I know.
single cell organisms. We study
Yeah.
rocks. We study geology. If we saw any signs of life elsewhere, we would do everything we can to understand it.
And
Any
so,
intelligent species would.
no, you're right. And like, we have a bit of an understanding around like our particular solar system and the planets that orbit the sun and stuff like that. And it's like, obviously they're mostly desolate gases and things and stuff that's going on there. But like, you look at Earth, and I was saying this to my friend Fran a few weeks ago. We're out at his farm and we're just talking about kind of a similar subject, and he's just kind of getting into this as well. We're just talking about like the Earth and stuff. And I said to him, I don't think you realize like how special this place is. And we were just walking through one of his paddocks, and I was like, look at this. Like I literally went and just like grabbed some dirt and grass and just like pulled it apart from the earth down there. And you looked into it, and this is just some random spot in a paddock, and you see like little mites and like little bugs and stuff crawling around. I'm like, there's literally life everywhere here. Everywhere you look, there's. I said, you're in the middle of the paddock. We just like literally pulled some grass out, and you look in the grass. There's like little mites or tiny little ants. Like it's everywhere. Like you know, you look at our closest, like Mars and stuff like that. There's like that's not really what it's like there. So it's just I do think this planet is pretty special. I don't think it's like whether there's other ones like this out there. Yeah, probably, but I do think that this planet's actually quite special.
It's paradise.
It is. It is. It really is.
It is. I mean, it's hell for it's the hellish conditions are, a lot of the stuff that we've inflicted on ourselves, politics, wars, everything. But I mean, this, you're a hunter, you spend most of your time in nature. Like, so we're so disconnected to nature. Go to everybody, go to national parks whenever you can. This place is paradise on earth. It's heaven on earth. It literally is heaven. It's like go to Yosemite National Park. I just went to the Flinders Ranges with Andy Ross. It's paradise. It's heaven. It's perfection. Stunning beauty. Naturally.
I do like the theory of that that the aliens or whatever they are basically here to watch over us but protect the planet, being that what some stories have said is that it's essentially they were here a lot earlier than us, and they've obviously had a technological advancement way beyond what we can do. And then obviously with the invention of like atomic energy and bombs and things like that, that's when people first really started seeing them show up in the skies around like all the air bases that have the nuclear weapons in the States, who have had craft over there who'll shut them all down and stuff like that. And the theory was that when we started doing testing in Nevada and here in Australia and wherever else, that the nuclear blast was so powerful that the theory was that it actually is tearing through a dimension, and it's being heard or hearing it in some other dimensions or things like that. And apparently that's a freaking big no-no.
Yeah, we have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
And if you look at it in a technological aspect, if there is another civilization or an alien thing that has technology where you can use literally the air around its gravity to propel things, they're probably thinking, why the hell are these freaking Neanderthals playing with nuclear energy and blowing stuff up? Like, they have the access to make something that you won't need any of that stuff, and it's safe and it's good for the planet. So that's that kind of thing that I'm like, as we are like us humans, most like, as we know, we treat the earth like dirt, like as in like crap, as in there's so much shit going on that probably doesn't need to happen yet. The agenda of oil and gas and all that kind of stuff that kind of fuels our economies and stuff is so entrenched that if it was to go the other way, there's going to be businesses that are shut down, and that's just, a big no-no and stuff like that. It's just a dichotomy that it's hard to fathom and understand that we probably could live harmoniously together between races and culture and religion and whatever, but it's just all tied up in this mess of money and lies and shit like that. So in my mind, I like to think that the aliens, if they're here for good.
Yeah. I mean, that's the best way, it's the most optimistic way to think about it. I often wonder, whether we human, the state of the world, just whether it's a human nature issue, or whether it's actually we're just kind of victims of the systems that we've created to operate in. Like capitalism, for an example, unchecked capitalism will it's a constant game of getting the most acquisitions, the most money rising to the top. It's a system, and I'm not even shitting on capitalism because I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know of a better system. It seems like the best system we've got, but it's definitely like we've got completely unnecessary poverty. It is also a system that totally rewards psychopaths, like
Yeah.
business shark psychopath, not necessarily like mass murdering psychopaths, but
No, no,
like there's a lot of psychopaths and sociopaths in the business world, and that's why they're at the top of the top. And this is a system that rewards that kind of stuff. So yeah, do we have this fucked up human nature that's holding us back, or are we just beholden to the systems that we've created that we are too entrenched in that we can't think better ways? We can't think in more social ways to help everyone. I don't know, but maybe there's
yeah,
something to that.
I think it's the latter of what you said. I think it's we're just so tied up in a mess of things that it's kind of got to the point. It's like, well, things are running smoothly with everything that's going on in the world. Oil still powers cars, most of the things like that, and people make money off it and everything like that. So I just, yeah, it'd be a pretty big shake up for, firstly, free energy. If there was free energy, it would literally change the planet,
Hmm. Hmm.
especially when you talk about business with financial incentives to not have that. So I don't know, Jack, but the aliens might be here to save us.
I fucking hope so, man. I really hope so. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm also like you. I'm really hoping something, cat's out of the bag, and maybe the dribble of information is also a precursor to maybe another mass sighting that they the powers that be are anticipating that they need to warm us up to. Who
yeah,
knows? But that would be fun. That'd be really cool. I'd I'd jump on a plane and fly to wherever that was, the location.
absolutely.
Um, Dude, man, so great to talk to you. Yeah, it
Likewise.
was meant to be like a short little recount, and we've done a whole podcast. So, dude, let's do this again soon. I've really enjoyed chatting with you, and so nice to meet you as well. Well, very long overdue.
Absolutely, Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Next time I get back down to Melbourne, I'll let's catch up and go have a coffee or a beer or something like that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, would love to. Awesome. Yeah, let's do you have do you want people to find you? Is there any kind of do you want to connect with people at all, or anything you
Listen,
want to plug?
I will say this: if anyone like this is a hard thing. If like anyone just wants someone to like listen to like their story because they feel like they may have told friends and family they think they're fucking batshit crazy, like click me a message on like Instagram or whatever like that. Yeah, just bang my name in Eamon Waddington. You'll find it eventually. Yeah, I guess that's the main thing. If anyone just wants to just have an ear, someone to listen, and maybe reinforce that they're not crazy. That there's people out here like yourself, like me, who are not chalk myself up. We're not stupid people, and we're we have seen things that we can't explain, and I've got no reason to lie. Like I said, I've got my dad, my brother who could back me up, my girlfriend who was there for a sighting and things like that, my friend Xavier. There's other people who have seen things as well, and we both can't explain it. So I don't know, but yeah, for sure. Anyone, feel free to hit me up, and happy to chat.
And keep talking to people and your friends and family, everybody. Like talk about it,
Absolutely.
investigate.
Yep.
Ask people what if they've seen stuff, and
I
you
think
might
people
be
will
surprised.
find absolutely. And just quickly, like I've just started a new job, like probably 2 weeks ago now, and for whatever reason, someone brought up the topic with me, not knowing that I maybe knew a little bit about it, but yeah, it was. I'll just give you a really quick story. The company I'm working for does like the LED light upgrades on street lights. So from the old uh, generic light bulbs to an LED light. So, and we do a lot of the work really early in the morning, like 4 a.m. and stuff before the traffic comes out. But one of the crews that was out working, it might have been last year or something. They were out there working on a traffic light, and the same thing. They saw some red lights come down and hover above the traffic, like not super close. I think I said a few hundred meters, but come down, hover above the light, and then just shoot off up into space. And they were like, these guys who are. It's funny because these are, as you would call generic bogans who are
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
this, but they're just like, soul of the earth kind of Aussie guys. And they're like, mate, you should have seen it. We have no freaking idea what it was. And it's like, that's it, man. It doesn't matter who you are. There's things that we just can't explain. And we're seeing them, and there's definitely something out there. If that's my closing statement.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you, brother. I'm with you. Man, thanks so much. And yeah, let's do this again soon because I'm sure there's like so much I'd love to talk to you about all your hunting adventures and a lot of your
Yeah,
other interests. And I'm sure we'll get right back into the UFO subject too.
yeah.
But
If any it'd be cool. Like if any kind of like cool news drops soon, let's have a chat and break it down.
sounds good, man. Awesome. Have a great night,
Hey,
brother.
you too, Jack. Thanks, bud.
Awesome. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.